As we reported, rail workers and companies reached an agreement early today to avert a strike that could have disrupted the economy. Engineers and train conductors were able to secure more flexible schedules, including for medical leave. That was a major source of contention and long-standing dispute with the companies. The Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, was heavily involved with these negotiations, especially over the last 48 hours. He's here with me now. And for the record, we should note that one of the companies, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, is a funder of the NewsHour. Mr. Secretary, welcome back to the NewsHour. Our understanding is that it was a central concern here that not necessarily pay for the workers, but working conditions. They wanted paid sick leave. They wanted medical leave. What does it say to you that they had to threaten a strike, which would have had devastating impacts on the U.S. economy, to get those seemingly simple things?
Yeah, what really happened here, this negotiation was going on for 2 years, and they weren't able to get to an agreement. The president had to put in place a Presidential Emergency Board, a PEB they call it, and they came up with a framework around what the contract should be moving forward. Some of those pieces were not in the PEB. So the unions and the company sat down at a table and had a conversation. It was a little deeper than just thinking about a couple of days off here, but it's really around the language and the way the language is written in a contract. And to a layperson like myself, you read the language sometimes, and it looks like it reads like it sounds. But as a lawyer, a labor lawyer, the definitions are different. So we spent a lot of time over the course of the last night into till 5 o'clock this morning, going over this language. We were able to get to an agreement and avert. It would have been a strike, and it would have been catastrophic for the American economy.
Can you offer some more details? There was reported that they ended up with 1 day of paid sick leave as part of this deal. Is that true?
Well, that's one piece of it, and then there was another part of it that there were 3 days from medical, meaning that there's part of the crews that have set times, set standards, 3 shifts, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7, and then there's these crews that work when the train goes out. Those folks don't have predictability in their schedule, and before this contract, they didn't have an ability to set a doctor's appointment, because if they did a doctor's appointment and it was in the middle of a week and they went to the doctor's appointment, they would not get a chance to work because these trains would leave the station. So they were able to agree on that. They were also able to agree on some rules around work, around working rules in the contract, and then they were also on the healthcare. The split for healthcare is 85-15, and when the contract expires, what they wanted to do, the unions wanted to do, is make sure they cap the 15% portion at 15%, or as high as $398 until the new contract comes in place. It's a monetary issue for the worker. You're absolutely right, though, that this was not a monetary issue at all on behalf of the company, but I think it was based on principle. But we were able to get some good movement at the table last night.
Yeah.
We got to a satisfactory resolution for the union, and we got to a satisfactory resolution for the company. And in this contract, overall, when you put the whole entire package together, it's a good contract for the worker, and I've seen many contracts.
Well, this does bring the conversation back to working conditions for American workers, and we are in this moment more broadly that some are saying a sort of a national labor movement, right? You've seen unions forming at Amazon and Starbucks and Trader Joe's and advocating for better working conditions. You are the first former union leader to run the Department of Labor in over 40 years. What does this movement say to you about the American worker today?
Well, it says very honestly that the American worker is disgruntled, and they're looking for collective power, and they're looking in that collective power, they're looking for collective bargaining. And what's interesting about when I met with some Starbucks workers and Amazon workers at the White House, their main conversation wasn't about financial aspects. It was about working conditions and the way that people were being treated, which I thought was really unique because they were young people. They weren't saying we're looking for exorbitant amounts of money, although they're looking for better salaries. But it really was about respect and the way that they were being treated inside these different facilities, stores, and safety when it came to Amazon. So a lot of folks, 71% of American people, look favorably upon unions today in the latest poll that I saw. It's the first time in my lifetime that I've seen those types of numbers, and more people organizing. We're seeing an increase here at the Department of Labor and the National Labor Relations Board. It's up 58% from this time last year of people applying or for petitions to have card check agreements.
So related to that, as these groups are forming, people are advocating for better working conditions. You look at what's happened with the nurses' strike in Minnesota. Just this week, we have seen years of teachers going on strike, demanding better working conditions and better pay, as they're historically very low paid. But does this sort of say to you that we've reached a boiling point in this moment? And do you expect more strikes ahead?
Well, I think we have, and I'll tell you another one. Nurses in Wisconsin are looking to organize in Wisconsin. The former governor there, Walker, took away all the rights of unions in that state, and a lot of unions now are saying we want to organize. And I think that, I think two things. Let's separate the two issues. What the nurses are going through, they're going through a contract negotiation, and what Amazon workers and Starbucks are going through, they're trying to be recognized by the company. So in that particular case, I'm trying to encourage companies, and the president as well, encouraging companies to go to the bargaining table, and your employees have decided through a legal manner to join a union. They want to form a union, and those companies are doing everything they can not to work with these young people and these people to join a union. On the other side, on the nurses' side, I'll go back to what I've just spent the last 20 hours doing. You can't settle a contract if you don't have two willing parties. And what happened last night was, for 2 years, this has been going on with the rail companies and the unions. They weren't able to completely agree on everything. And last night, they were in a room. I was trying to facilitate a conversation, which I did, with help from a lot of other people, including Secretary Buttigieg, Secretary Vilsack, the President of the United States of America, and we got to an agreement. Employers need to respect workers' rights, and I think in some cases, and the other way around too. Workers need to respect the employer, and that's why it's called collective bargaining. You win some arguments and you lose some arguments, but at the end of the day, if the contract is a good contract for every side, then it's a good contract. And I haven't seen a case where you can't get to a contract if two sides continue to talk.
Mr. Secretary, we know you're coming off a very long negotiation period there. We really appreciate you making the time to join us tonight. That is U.S. Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh. Thank you again.
Thank you.